So where to begin? 2018, it was a crazy, somewhat scary, but wonderfully exciting year for me. My word, let's dive in. So the year began pretty much as I thought it would begin. I was back at uni.
We are back at the industrial design grind.
And I was working on projects, learning to be a better industrial designer. And it was good, but I was starting to get not dissatisfied, I was starting to get a little bit restless. So thankfully, out of the blue, in about sort of March, I got a cold call from Agent Smart. And that cold call turned into a conversation, we had a few Skype calls, and eventually they offered me a small internship. So I flew to Berlin, Germany, and I had my first taste of what design in the real world was like. So I was in Berlin for 6 weeks, and in that time I had two massive takeaways. Number one is I received probably the best career advice ever from John, and he said this.
One, you need to understand where you are in your career. So if I imagine I'm here, then I know that the people above me, I need to make them look good. I need to help them out. I need to do free work for them. The people below me, I need to help them out because I want them to learn. I want to teach them everything I know. And what happens is these people drag you up and expose you to loads and loads of people you'd never get access to. And these people push you up.
Now, I've taken that piece of advice and I've used it multiple times throughout the year. The second takeaway I had was learning the design sprint process. And it was from this exposure to the design sprint that the initial idea for Sprintathon came into being and began to grow. With the idea of Sprintathon sort of kindling in the back of my mind, and I was slowly working on it on the side, I went back to university to begin semester 2. However, once getting back to university, nothing felt the same. I think it was sort of a combination of having to gone out in the real world, worked for AJ & Smart, a world-class design firm, and seeing how different design is in the real world. I began to realize, sort of 2 weeks in, that the processes and stuff that they were teaching us at university were actually quite outdated, and they weren't things that we were going to use once we graduated. So I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I spending money to learn outdated processes and work on boring, fake projects? I had actually been kicking the idea around of dropping out of university for a while, but at the end of July, I decided to bite the bullet and just do it. I am quitting design school. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the year began to get quite crazy. When I left university, my plan was to leverage my already existing YouTube channel to begin sort of reaching out to top professionals and learning from them. What I wanted to do is DIY my own education. But there was one thing that I didn't account for. How the heck am I gonna make a little bit of money to survive? So this trying to figure out ways to earn money while I started doing this DIY education led me to naively say, I'm thinking of starting up my own sort of design consultancy. Because heck, you know, I'm a student, I know everything. Thankfully then, I didn't end up starting my own design consultancy, but instead what I did is I managed to score myself a really great contracting gig at New Zealand's top innovation firm called Creative HQ. From there, I travelled down to Wellington to work for Creative HQ for 2 months. So after working for Creative HQ for a couple of months, I then went to Amsterdam back in Europe to work for a company called WorldSkills to produce some videos for them. And while in Amsterdam, I got to do a heck of a lot of cool things. I got to attend probably the most fancy dinner I've ever attended. I got to go on the riverboats and all of those awesome things. But most importantly, while I was there, I released the Sprintathon test video. So this is where the show comes in. We're calling it Sprintathon, and it is a 10-day. So the reason for doing this is I wanted to test the idea before committing a whole lot of time and energy into this idea that I didn't know people wanted. I wanted to know if I made Sprintathon, if I made the show, I wanted to know if people would watch this show. I released the video. I was so nervous, but thankfully you guys replied in a massive way. We received hundreds of really positive comments, and the answer was a resounding yes, you guys wanted this show. So that moment for me was wonderfully exciting, and with that knowledge, I then flew to the States to work for a company called Autodesk. And while I was there, I was also planning to pitch them on Sprintathon and hopefully get them to invest. That was my plan. This next phase while I was in USA was probably the coolest part of my year and also the most frustrating part of my year. Firstly, the coolest part is I got to work for Autodesk, which was pretty amazing. They're sort of like a dream company for me. I got to attend their conference in Las Vegas, which was epic. And I got to play Jenga with their CEO. The frustrating side of thing is that I had this naive idea that I would rock up to Autodesk, deliver my pitch on Sprintathon, they would think it's amazing, wonderful, and they would invest in me just like that. But unfortunately, I had never dealt with a massive company like Autodesk before, and things don't happen just like that. So I did pitch them on the idea. They really liked the idea, but they had a whole lot of questions, and there's a whole lot of legal stuff that had to be worked out. So this whole process is taking much longer than I originally thought it was going to take. I was hoping to have something agreed on by the end of the year, but that's definitely not possible. However, we're still in conversation, so it's still exciting, but it's been a lot harder than I thought. But anyway, while in the US, I had a great time, and I also got the opportunity to meet Jake Knapp, and I also showed him Sprintathon, and he loved it. And having the guy who created that process say that the show's pretty awesome and cool, that was wonderfully validating for me. So from when I left design school, I set out to DIY my education. And so in the spirit of education, this is what I've learned this year. Firstly, I think to have a great career, you must have two things. Number one is to be really good at a particular skill. Number two is to be really good at networking and have a great network. So with that in mind, this is what I've learned. Number one, I learned that innovation is probably the most important phase of creating a great product. Number two, I learned how to talk to very important people. Now, while that might sound like a trivial thing, whenever I met famous people, I would always go really shy and quiet. It was quite a problem, but from meeting all these important business people while I was in the States, I built up my confidence to be able to talk to these people, and I mean, they're just really interesting people at the end of the day. They're people just like us, they're just doing amazing things. Number three, I learned that pitching to a big company was far more complex than I originally thought it would be. I learned all about how to pitch an idea by actually doing it. Hardcore. Number four, I learned how to network effectively. While in the States, I really focused my time at networking into Silicon Valley, and I got pretty good at it. I'm quite happy with how I did. I managed to score some really interesting meetings while I was there. I managed to go to IDEO and a few other really cool places while in Silicon Valley. Like I said before, the two things that you need to have a great career is networking and skill. This year, I've been working dramatically on increasing my network. My networking game is high at the moment, really high. But 2019 is going to be all about beginning to build up my skill to meet my networking. And the way I'm going to do that is through Sprintathon. With Sprintathon, what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to work alongside some of the best people in the world. And hopefully through doing it, I'm going to increase my skill level in design, in videography, and in business. So 2019, people, is going to be probably the big year. This is the year where I'm going to go really hard and create hopefully something amazing. So yeah, thank you 2018. It has been an amazing year for me, but 2019, we're gonna up the game and it's gonna be epic. Thanks guys. I couldn't have done without you. I can't wait to see this next chapter unfold. Same can you. So I am a big fan of having one big goal each year. My big goal for this year is to make Sprintathon a thing and to make it financially independent. Comment below what your big goal is going to be for 2019. It would just be really cool to see other people's goals. Anyway, all the best. See you later.